And for this playoff, let's invite upon stage Mr. Shubhranshu Singh, Chief Marketing Officer, CVBU, Tata Motors. Mr. Santosh Iyer, Managing Director and CEO, Mercedes-Benz, India. We have Mr. Martin Corner, Director of Climate Protection, Mobility and Housing Policy Unit, City of Stuttgart. Mr. Sigmar Hasis, CEO of Hasis. We have Dr. Hagen Radowski, Senior Partner, Porsche Consulting GmbH. And Mr. Mark Zimmerman, CFO, Member of the Board at MHP. And for the refereeing of this playoff, the match referee is none other than my friend and colleague Karthik Malhotra. Karthik, all yours, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I think everything that we've heard today pretty much culminates in something that we're going to talk about now, which is the automobile industry. We've spoken about green, we've spoken about sustainability. We also just heard Mr. Purnendu Chatterjee talk about sodium-ion batteries as an alternative to lithium-ion. But starting with the concept of future of mobility, I really want to understand, is there a future of mobility beyond electric mobility? Because right now, the buzz of the town, no matter which town you go to, from Europe to India, happens to be electric. Mr. Santosh Iyer, let me start with you. Is the future of mobility electric, electric only, or electric plus?
See, we are in Stuttgart, where if you ask it 140 years back, and if you would have come here and asked this question, they would have said, and you do a market research, they would have said mobility means faster horse carriages. Nobody would have told a car, right? Till the time.
Sir, you're doing that already. You're using the Formula One engines in the Mercedes-Benz cars, and then you're combining it with the power of electric and hybrids, which are giving a mileage of 13 kilometers a liter. So I don't think the story has changed too much, has it?
No, I think the brand thrives on innovation, and we have been pushing the boundaries. So the future to define is yet to be seen. But as we see today, there is no other alternative, at least in the passenger car space, than electric. When you have to decarbonize the industry, when you need to also get performance out of the car, I think if you tick all those boxes, right now it's only electric which offers. But future nobody knows. That's to put a time frame to say the future will never be anything apart from any other technology may not be entirely right. But at this stage, it's about electrification. It's about using electric cars. Personally, me working for the brand, when I come to Stuttgart, when I have a chance to see some future cars, including performance cars, they blow me away, on what's yet to come. So a lot of work happening. On one side, we heard about batteries, but also on the other side in terms of motors, and also trying to make the car itself much more recyclable, much more sustainable. So yes, right now, all bets in on electrification, electrified cars, till the time something else challenges this technology and these platforms.
Okay, Shubhranshu, let me come to you and let me get the India perspective. While Santosh Iyer has also given us the Indian perspective, but this is a German brand, and on the panel you've got two more German gentlemen with you. But I want to come to the Indian perspective. Is it too early for us to start thinking about sustainability, or is it the right time to also start thinking about sustainability when we talk about electrification?
As a matter of fact, I think India is not even one step behind when it comes to the consciousness that sustainability is an imperative. In fact, thousands of electric buses are plying our roads. We are in electric cargo, in mini trucks, passenger vehicles. There is a leadership position already with Tata Motors. But the important thing is the reasons that are driving sustainability is the consumer realizes that he is doing good by doing well himself, as in the cost of operation itself becomes a major motivator. Say, for instance, in the case of last mile cargo, if you are spending 30,000 rupees on average a month on diesel, if you have, say, you're running 300 kilometers a day, the equivalent costs in electrification would be about 3,000 rupees a month. So even though the vehicle cost would go up, the cash in the pocket and the cost of operation is so lucrative that it is becoming a major magnet. So I think contextually people realize that it's good for business, it's good for environment, and of course the sensorials and everything else along with it are also going up. So electric vehicles are very much present across various sectors of the economy, and we will see this in terms of payload, etc., going across pretty much the entire portfolio, where commercial vehicles and passenger vehicles.
Right. So we've seen, I think what you're mentioning is absolutely bang on and on point. When you talk about electrification of the fleet in India, the journey really started with commercial vehicles, and a high capex, low opex model works well. But in the case of passenger vehicles, is the consumer going to be ready to shell out that additional delta on an electric vehicle when ICE pretty much does the job for him? Shubhranshu.
Well, in my opinion, I can speak as a marketer. You see, we are too focused on what is changing in the consumer's context. And Bill Bernabach, who was an advertising genius, said, for millions of years, human beings have had very basic instincts and very basic heuristics. So we should be more concerned about the unchanging man. And the unchanging aspect of this is, if there's something new that offers you delight, that has novelty value, that has huge operating economic advantages, then the adoption starts, and then the early adopters set the trend, and the rest follows. So you know that the Nexon in EV from Tata Motors has a 70% market share now.
Absolutely.
And I think the accompanying infrastructure in terms of home charging and so many other things, the conditioning variables are all lining up. And so I think the future is very, very bright. And I think the passenger adoption is also happening not only because it's a fancy new car, but because they see the value in terms of what it does to the environment, and they want to make their own personal contribution as well.
Okay, let's bring in the German perspective here. Dr. Hagen Rudowski, if I can throw a question to you. You're from the Porsche Consulting Group and Consultancy, and you sit on the board and work very closely on strategy. From the perspective of a German brand like Porsche, am I pronouncing it correct? Is it Porsche, Porsche,
yeah,
Porsche?
It doesn't matter as long as you say it with a smile.
Okay,
so.
well, the smile is right here, as broad as yours. So from a consulting perspective, when you were on the drawing board really figuring out the electric strategy, what were some of the pros and cons, and what really made the pivot from ICE to electric happen for the Porsche Group?
I think the point was already made over here when we say, electric is the future, there's no doubt. But let's not forget the most important person in our game, and that's the customer. Take rates are different around the world, and some regions need more time. So really adjusting your product portfolio in that sense that you kind of respect that different rates of change around the world really makes a perfect strategy.
Okay. Siggy, let's come to you. There's a time involved from the time a car is conceptualized or a vehicle is conceptualized to the time it really comes to the market. With a very rapidly changing technological environment, that time to market needs to be crunched. It needs to be shortened. And I think that is where somebody like you comes in, who has about 27 years of experience, if I'm not mistaken, with Mercedes-Benz, and now you're running your own consultancy firm. So how do we innovate, and how do we reduce the time to market, and how do we quickly pivot from something that is not working to something that could work using technology?
Yeah, I fully agree. It's speed, speed, speed. So how could we accelerate to bring innovation in the product and produce it in a customer valuable way? And this is all about, I call it digital transformation with lots of elements, but we need digital transformation with a concrete why. Why means value add. Value add for the customer. And at the end, the company wants to earn money. Therefore, speed means and let me just make an example how we do the validation. Other OEMs globally, there are 3 types of validation. Road-based validation, but for this you need hardware prototypes, very costly. Then you have test bench validation, and the third one is digital validation. And if we want to make speed, we have to shift from the right to the left. That means from road-based validation to test bench validation to digital validation. This has to do definitely with tools, with methods, with organizations, with processes, but do not underestimate the mindset. We need there the mindset of digital, a digital-driven organization, and we need digital courage. Digital courage means to focus on digitalization and focus and shift this from road to test bench to digital. And this helps to make speed. This I call digital transformation, digital engineering. And there I do see everywhere huge potential.
Okay, so digital transformation seems to be the name of the game. Santosh Iyer, let me bring the ball back to your court. And, when you talk about Mercedes-Benz and when you think about the whole manufacturing process, you still have the Henry Ford images in mind of cars really being rolled out on assembly lines. Today, sitting in Stuttgart or anywhere in the world, how do you view Mercedes-Benz as a company? Is it a mechanical manufacturing company? Is it a digital company?
Firstly, the top boss is here, right here, Jorg, who is leading. And in Stuttgart, we have something called Factory 56, which we are all proud of. I think this factory is a benchmark for the world when it comes to automotive production. We have never gone the one color, one model philosophy. You mentioned brands back in the US. We always believed in innovation, maybe not selling more cars, but innovating and making more. And that also goes to the production processes. Thanks to our colleagues in Bangalore, we have this MBIDI setup. Digital twins, what he's mentioning, is all being practiced. It's not a concept. And I think just to name, a lot of technology is coming in to ensure the manufacturing lead time as well as quality as well as processes are done up. So I think even in India, we are quite fortunate to imbibe many of those. Flexible production, we can also make an electric, because one of the question was also how do you now change based on customer demand your production processes. We can be proud to say that in our manufacturing process in the same line we can make an electric car, hybrid electrified combustion engine car, and also the traditional combustion engine car. So all possible to be rolled out of the same line. That gives flexibility, and all of this again is, I think, we keep pushing the barrier to see what we can do for the future.
Okay, Hagen, let me bring you back into this conversation. Now, we are consistently talking about electrification, electrification, electrification. Does there need to be a step in between from ICE to electrification, and is that step hybrid, or is that step not required at all?
That, first of all, Kartik, that step is required, but then there's also a step in that going from what you call, what was the first one? The test bench, no, not the test bench, the road, then the test bench, and then digital. So, that step of digital in between is, that step of test bench in between is really important in getting to digital. So, there was a book written over 60 years ago with a very boring title called The Structure of Scientific Revolution from Thomas Kuhn, if you want to read it. But that guy coined a term in that book that we all use to describe what's happening here. It is the paradigm shift. And that's what's really happening. And we need, we need to give our customers time and also maybe that step in between to adapt.
Okay, the step in between, Shubhranshu, let me come back to you. And Tata Motors is the largest electric vehicle manufacturer, seller in India. My whole conflict with EV is, and I don't want to be a naysayer, but my only conflict with this whole EV narrative right now is that what if 5 years later, after making large investments in electric manufacturing, there's a new technology which offsets the impact of the investments that you've made already. And there are cases and there are case studies here in Germany itself where massive investments have been made in a technology and there weren't enough sales. So how do you quantify and qualify that risk-reward ratio when you adopt a new technology?
I'm saying no. Firstly, there is no dance of probability here. It's quite clear that the world needs to move towards a more sustainable mobility. And time and the future only move in one direction. So when people have already adopted that... Do we know
it's the right future?
Certainly, because the way industry and technology come together and move ahead is that a very virtuous ecosystem develops around it. And consumer insights into their choice making are actually mediated by various voices of authority. It's not only the OEM saying, I think you should buy electric, therefore go buy electric. They make their own choices based on what are the options available. Take, for example, what has happened in communication or content, for example. The choices that were made, if people said, oh, I should not move away from a landline telephone because who knows if this cellular thing will ever come down in terms of cost, the adoption would not have kicked off. When NASA sent a man to the moon in 1969 July, the total computing power in NASA was less than what's available in an electric iron today. Right. And an ordinary hand phone, a smartphone would have more computing power than the entire planet had. If they said, you know what, I'm sending a man to the moon, but what if the technology changes in between, I can't get him back? There is inherent risk in every business decision that you make. But I think the propensity to consume, the virtuous positive cycles that have kicked in, and I think a global supply chain coming together makes it pretty sure, pretty certain that this is the intended direction, and I think we will move all the way.
Okay, and this actually brings me to a small elephant, but yet an elephant in the room, and this is something that my colleague Sandeep just addressed some time back, but I want to bring it in the context of manufacturing of electric vehicles. And Siggy, let me come to you with this. There is this small elephant, a fairly large one actually, I stand corrected, called China. When you talk about electrification of fleets, when you talk about electrification of mobility going forward, the huge dependence on China is something that India and Germany, to my mind, will be able to do very little about in the foreseeable future. How do you view that?
So I mentioned I spent 3 years in China during my 27 years at Mercedes, and definitely it's our biggest market. This is the current status, and this will stay, not just for Mercedes, I guess, for other OEMs as well. But now I'm not a Mercedes guy anymore. Now I'm independent, and I have my own opinion.
You can speak your mind then.
And therefore, it's good to have their local production. That's a first good starting point. And we can be proud of this, and we have to expand this. But anyway, we have this regulation in China, in US, and it's always good to have their local production as a starting point. And then it's the collaboration. How do we collaborate? I mean, from a governmental perspective, a political perspective, economic perspective, with the right partnerships, definitely, and to overcome this. It's not an easy game, but you ask for electrification.
Yeah,
there we have to start.
On
China. The core there is battery. We have,
which is what? Correct me if I'm wrong. 70% of the cost of an electric vehicle is battery, and almost 100% dependence on those batteries is China.
Yeah, you have the big players definitely with the CATL, with the whole ecosystem. You have them in China. There are many tries of all the OEMs to start their own ecosystem. Not currently very successful. So therefore, we have to find there a good solution. I still believe there must be a common approach of OEMs to come there up with a alternative, with a common alternative.
Okay.
To be not 100% dependent on this situation, definitely. But I do not see currently the successful startups, the successful joint ventures, but I would push them, I would encourage them to continue. At the end, we have to make money. At the end, we have to steer the innovation. You said on the way from liquid to solid. I guess this is an important step. It's all about battery, but do not forget the next step with the cars with the big wheels. We already started, which is fuel cell. I personally believe this is a good future, not in the next 5 years, but perhaps in the next 7 to 8 years for cars as well. So therefore, do not forget the next step of innovation, of technology, because there we are more independent. We have more. We can strengthen our strength there, and push that technology further.
Okay. So from what I understand, Siggy, that you're saying that step 1 is fait accompli. There has to be reliance on China, and we can work on step 2 and step 3. Well, gentlemen, we are at half time of this playoff right now. I want to bring in a counter attack, and Mr. Purendu Chatterjee, if I may request you to really, you touched upon it, and you gave this case of sodium-ion batteries. Is there an advantage, inherent advantage that India has and the rest of the world without China has in sodium-ion batteries as an alternative to lithium-ion batteries when you talk about the future of mobility? Can we have mic number 6 on, please?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Good.
Oh, okay. So, look, sodium-ion battery is in the early stage of the game. Okay. So, if you successfully execute the R&D programs, and globally it gets executed, We are in the beginning of the game, so we can catch up. So India will have, because of its market power, a huge advantage. Also, sodium will go into the grid first, and we are building a new grid, and the grid battery will be sodium. So these two reasons gives me immense hope that we will succeed in beating China in sodium.
So, gentlemen to the panel, thank you, Mr. Chatterjee. Gentlemen in the panel, I really want to come to this question right now about alternatives to lithium ion. Are there conversations in boardrooms about exploring these new technologies, especially lithium ion? Santosh Iyer, if I can come to you.
Well, I can only urge all of you and some of my Indian friends who have come in that 200 meters away, if you go to the museum and you start from the first floor and you keep coming down, you will see the evolution of cars, technology, and how things have happened. And you will see that nobody could envisage the ground floor cars when you start from the 1886 on the first floor. Similarly, on technology, there is, of course, solid state, many others. We are having this company, YASA, which make motors. And it's just not the batteries, as I said. It's also the performance coming out of motors. A lot happening, lot will continue to happen. But for us, we have to keep the customer in the center today. Today's mobility need cannot be met by a technology of 2040, and we cannot wait. We need to give something to the market which the customer wants in a sustainable way, in a decarbonized manner as much as possible, because let's accept we are part of the problem. I think in the earlier panel, we mentioned Delhi air quality versus other places. So we can keep postponing. We can say that let the customer wait for the best ever technology to come, the most low-cost solution to come, the supply chains to get corrected, but then at whose cost? And that cost is public health, that cost is environment, and that cost is our children's future. And this is something, if we collectively agree that yes, we need to drive today the change with the available technologies, because they are great. Today's electric cars, at least what we make in India, they give 700 kilometers range. We in fact did a Guinness Book World Record in India of driving a car by an independent person with on public roads, not on test tracks. And that car did 900 plus kilometer range in India from Bangalore to Bombay. So I think it's all there today. Of course, there will be better technologies in the future, no doubt. But the customer of today wants a car today for his mobility needs. And then again, as Mercedes-Benz, we are in luxury mobility. So they go a bit beyond car, a bit beyond just the basics to see what kind of comfort. And I think we have not discussed much on the software bit of the car.
I just wanted to come to the software part.
The differentiator will be the software. Today, we have the MB operating systems in our car. This is the experience that will differentiate cars, brands, and products and services. And I think that's a lot to be done there. A lot of focus is on the hardware, which is this battery. But if you take this out, I think that will develop. All of us will find solutions. The car of the tomorrow will also be more software defined, just not battery defined.
Right, which is why I began by asking you that, are you a mechanical engineering company or a software company, a digital company? But great, I think I have the answer now. Dr. Hagen, if I can bring you into this conversation now. Minus hardware, what is the future of mobility? Talk to us about the software and talk to about artificial intelligence and machine learning and self-driving cars and, all the beautiful geeky stuff about automobiles. Take us through it.
Yeah. So the paradigm shift I talked about, that's really, this is it. For over 70 years, we first had a beautiful design, then we put in more and more electronic control units, too many by now. And then at the end, we did try to put it all together with one piece of software. That no longer works. So this is the age of the software-defined vehicle. Yes, you've heard this before, but no longer design first, then ECUs, then software. Today it's software first, then a few ECUs, and then we can go into any beautiful car like any Porsche. So this is the basic idea. And along the way, AI helps us to be better in coding, to be better in design, to be better in supply chain.
Okay, but you talk about AI and I get the jitters, I get the goosebumps. I really don't want to still believe that AI can be used to a point where the car is going to drive itself. I still want to be in control.
that moment is very close, but we've been waiting for it for a very long time too, I admit. So we're somewhere in between.
So are you scared of that moment as much as I am, or there's something else which is holding back automation and self-driving cars?
It's more the perception and maybe also a little piece of missing regulation. But if you go to San Francisco today, you can already experience that. So it's there. It's more about, how do we deal with the biggest topic for autonomous driving, which is mixed traffic. That's really the challenge. So if you go on the road, all those other cars still will be there. What do we do about it? That's what's keeping us up a little bit here.
Okay, Siggy, let me bring you in. You talk about crunching timelines and the time to market and really getting the technology, the software part to work much quicker to get cars rolled out sooner than they used to earlier. I believe the timeline has been crunched from 4 years, or from 5 years to 4 years, and now you're working on crunching it from 4 to 3. Yeah. Talk to us about the role of artificial intelligence and connected technologies in crunching this timeline from a manufacturer's perspective.
Let me start a little bit storytelling. 10 years back, when I had a discussion with Ola Kalenius, and I asked for some money for the digital twin, said, okay, Siggy, give me 3 numbers, how I can measure your success and how you want to bring benefit for the company. And I know he expected KPIs. And I said, Ola, 30, 12, 1 ready. And this is always time, cost, quality. So time is only one aspect. It's cost and quality as well. These 3 dimensions. At that time I meant 30% hardware prototype production, 12 months acceleration in the product creation process, and first time right. That means no postponement of your market entry dates. This is time, cost, quality. And what I've learned there, make your targets measurable. And if you have measurable targets, you can track them. And this helps you to do the digital transformation. Coming back to AI. AI you can use along the enterprise processes in engineering, production, sales, after sales. You can do AI in the car as well, in the behavior. So therefore, 2 areas. In both cases, it's super important. And I'm doing a lot of AI projects with a lot of startups. Not focus only on the technology. Yes, it's Gen AI. Yes, it's deep learning. Yes, it's neurosymbolic AI. It's knowledge graphs. Combine the right algorithms, but even more important, have a deep knowledge of your business processes. And if you know your business processes, and that's true for engineering, for production, sales, and after sales, knowing you have the right data and you have first to do your homework before you start the AI. Do I have the right data? Do I have the right data quality? Do I have access to the right data via API? And have the right use cases? Then you can start doing AI. And what I have seen already, and you come back, I will come back to this acceleration, you can easily do efficiency improvements by 30–40% because of along the processes, along this engineering processes to accelerate even more. And this is AI with a deep knowledge of the business processes. So do it in a T-shaped way.
Okay. So KPIs, and talking about KPIs, Shubhranshu, if I can bring you into this conversation now. Is there a KPI for Tata Motors to make its way into Germany? I haven't seen Tata Motor cars in Germany yet. What is the roadmap?
Not in my pay grade to answer.
Okay.
But I can tell you, I'd like to kick the ball in India's direction for a minute.
Okay.
Because I see that we've spent a lot of time on powertrains and alternate fuels and future fuels and so on. But you must remember, since we are an India forum here as well, for an economy of 3.5 trillion at 1.3 billion people plus, with a median age of 28, if you were to count 100 people on the planet, India and China.
Yes.
So the definition of global and the bracket at which we are talking about the most sophisticated innovations coming to market and being commercialized, the entire luxury market in India is all of 50,000 vehicles today.
That's right.
And so therefore, for an urban population of 500 million, You need to have the ability to do incremental changes which can be commercialized with mouth-watering value at a very effective price point. And so the global majors also will need to be able to bring that innovation in easily accessible ways at the last mile, find the dealers, file in the service ecosystem. And there are brilliant things happening. Porsche has the suspension management system. Li Auto has done some fabulous work. How do we bring the benefit of that technology, which is happening in labs across the world, is commercialized for the elites, to the everyday lives of Indians everywhere, which then opens up a humongous market which will continue, given our demographic dividend, for many, many decades in the future. So I think, it's like I said, it's not my pay grade to decide whether or not we need to be in Germany, but certainly we need to do more in India. Everybody needs to do more in India, and the Germans are welcome to be in India as well.
I noticed you very, very easily flicked the ball from your court to Santosh Iyer's court. So, what do I make of it? Are we expecting semi-luxury or more luxurious Tata Motor vehicles, or are you hinting?
I'm a commercial vehicles man.
Mercedes-Benz cars more accessible to people like us.
I mean, Santosh's credentials are impeccable. It's well established. I mean, Mercedes is a leader in that bracket, and some of the work that they're doing direct to customer, etc., is very, very impressive. I'm just saying that even that, Karthik, if I may hazard a point, the old structure of mass, popular, prestige, local player, JV, MNC, even that model has gone for a toss now. So everybody is in play everywhere. Instead of saying, this is my proven model and I'll take it to India and then wait for India to catch up, you just need to have the acumen to say, this is a great market. What model will work here? And then tweak the model if you can.
Right. So, Santosh Iyer, I think he tried to flick it again, but let me try and control the ball here. Are we really looking at, as from the standpoint of Mercedes-Benz, is there scope to explore more entry-level Mercedes vehicles in India? Because like Shubhranshu just mentioned, just 50,000 luxury car sales as opposed to almost 4 million cars that we sold last year. So the ratio is small. Is there a case for Mercedes-Benz and other luxury brands like yourself to look at entry-level vehicles in India? Or do you think your business model will rest on super luxury, super expensive cars as they've been the case right now?
No, firstly, the car has a lot of content that we are trying to give to the market, and it starts from safety till digitalization to many other topics. Now, if you look at our mix in India, 25% of the cars we sell are all top-end cars. Then 60% of the cars are core. And then the entry is still today hardly 10 to 15%. So it's not that we don't have the entry. We have the GLA, we have the A-class there. But end of the day, of course, these cars have content and they are Mercedes-Benz. There is no plan to not have an Mercedes-Benz in any market, and either we do it because I think the brand promise, if you have a car, it needs to tick all the boxes, and what is the fundamental DNA of the brand. So in that sense, yes, we are waiting. Also on the other side, we have financial solutions. What's working well in India is we have a financial services arm which is now close to 1 billion in portfolio, and these guys, they really come up with ownership solutions where an Indian can actually pay 50,000 EMI, and actually start driving a Mercedes-Benz. And that in monthly installment is something that actually then crosses barriers between different segments. Our effort would be to try to make that as one of the key entry. But yes, again in India, consumers like to own the car and not lease it. And in these models, you have to give the car back in 3 years. So there is always an anxiety what happens after 3 years. So this is more of a cultural shift, but that's the direction we would like to continue in terms of our product development as well as what we do in India.
Okay, so I want to take a little bit of a break here and really pivot from four-wheelers and cars. While I understand this is the birthplace of Mercedes-Benz and Porsche, but I really want to defend at this point some blue sky thinking. And if Mr. Rahul Bharti is with us in the audience, Mr. Bharti, I would really want to come to you and want you to elaborate upon the story that you and I were discussing offline yesterday about flying taxis. Oh my God. I mean, that seems to be just another game changer at all. And Mr. Rahul Bharti was telling me about these flying taxis which are being tested by Suzuki in Japan. So take us through the future of flying mobility.
Yes. So we have to be open about what all can society benefit from. In Japan, for example, in mobility, there are individual machines where you have a one-man machine which can take, let's say, an elderly gentleman or a lady across the marketplace. Similarly, there are flying cars, and they are not too far away. They will be productionized in 2025, next year, and we are almost at the end of 24. So innovation is something you have to dream about what can, and actually you have to question why not. So I see a lot of ads, can I have an AI machine where my dog understands my language or I understand his language? Can I have a pen that does my homework? They're not too far away.
Seem like the Apple April Fool's Day ads, right? I mean, all this used to seem like April Fool's Day. And here we have, in fact, some solutions already. So, yeah, please allow me.
Yes. So it appears it's on the border of, the difference between intelligence and sanity is success. So it may not be April Fool's Day. And let me also mention to you, there's not just one company. There are several companies who are trying their hand at it. And it will be launched very soon, I think, in one of the major events in, I think, Japan Olympics or something. The idea is that there are needs of society which are not being fulfilled by our traditional mobility models. We have to think beyond.
Okay, we have to think beyond. Gentlemen, how are we thinking beyond as players in the auto sector? Shubhranshu, I'm sure you may not want to disclose all the strategy in front of Maruti Suzuki, one of your closest competitors back in India. But blue sky thinking, how relevant is that in boardrooms, in decision-making processes?
I think the point has already been made. The biggest change in automobiles or mobility per se has been the development of digitalization in every part of its operation. And I think outside of financial services...
I understand the process. I'm saying from a product innovation perspective.
I'll just come to that in a second. So point I'm making is, little incremental changes when looked at in aggregate in a market the size of India are massive changes. So for example, the way in which the automobile was conceived of and the entire industry grew, say in Europe, is a very large market of very few people, each having a lot of money. You come to a developing market, say in India, the paradigm shift is that it's still a very large market in aggregate of billion people, each having very little. So now the automobile, the mobility need is still very much there, but you need to have that mutation, that valuable mutation to be able to offer appropriate technology at addressable value. That's the challenge to bridge. So blue sky thinking is about not what the possibilities are, because they'll always be mouth-watering, but whether that possibility can be addressed on scale. So that's
Maybe I can give a very different tangent to this. We think of mobility, but India also has the highest number of road accidents. We have 150,000 people dying almost once. By the time we conclude this session, couple of casualties would have happened in terms of road accidents. So we were discussing and we adopted a highway stretch, right, as part of our CSR initiatives, which has the highest fatality. The Samruddhi Mahamarg, one of the best expressways, but having the highest casualties. And then with them, when we were discussing with this NGO, what can we do? We said our cars have a lot of sensors. They continue to collect data. They continue to collect data in terms of road conditions, also in terms of what's happening. And then we were discussing with our RD colleagues, of course, these are anonymous data. Can we use this data to identify potential braking hotspots? Where can we do? What can we do there? So as part of our CSR activities, can we change the design and accidents? So this is what mobility can do when you actually really look into the space of public safety and others. So you have to think beyond just selling cars or trucks and buses, but also in a developing country like India, as Shubhanshu said, the challenges are different. Right. So as players, what can we do to then change the game?
All right, gentlemen, we are completely out of time. One last word, Dr. Hagen, 30 seconds.
I'd add you need a radar. So at Porsche, we have something called Porsche Ventures, and we heard this before. Looking at startups is a great idea to capture ideas. And for blue sky thinking, you need those ideas that are floating around, and maybe a vehicle like Porsche Ventures is a very good idea.
All right, gentlemen. Well, that's all we have time for. This conversation can continue forever, and I'd love to take it offline with you, but right now we are completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us here on the future of mobility at the News9 Global Summit in Germany.
Requesting all the panelists to please stay on stage. So much talk of blue sky thinking when the skies are nice and grey outside, almost snowing and raining at the same time. But, as if to clear all the greys, a lot of blue sky thinking. Fascinating discussion on the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for these gentlemen on stage for helping us get a peek into the future of mobility. We're going to felicitate them. Before we let go of them, I'm going to invite Mr. Ramu Rao Jupalli and Mr. Hemant Sharma ji to please take the stage to felicitate our panel of guests. We can have another shawl, please. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for our match referee for the playoff, Karthik Malhotra.